right, let's talk about this. We bring Lonnie Chan in from the Hoover Institution, also Peter Brookes, Senior Fellow for National Security Affairs at Heritage. Welcome to you both. We've had some new information, some of which Greg just talked about in his report. And another piece, Lonnie, I'll start with you, that came in about an hour or so ahead of the meeting is that Kim Jong-un has moved up his departure time for what it's worth. So now President Trump will as well leave a little bit earlier than had first been planned. Do you read into that or no?
No, Connell, I don't read too much into it. I guess the bottom line here, and this was a point that your reporter made there in his stand-up from Seoul, is that a lot of the hard work that's going to happen is going to happen after this meeting. Look, this meeting's great for the photo op. It's great for the cameras. It's great for what it represents. But in terms of the hard work of what the future pathway forward is going to look like if we're going to have denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula, that's going to mean a lot more. And so I wouldn't read too much into this meeting ending early or ending a little bit earlier than expected.
No, that's fair. The president's talked about that, this being a process, probably trying to set some sort of expectation going in or lower some sort of expectation going in. Peter, let me ask you about something that did come up in Greg's report, and this is this whole idea that Secretary of State Pompeo at first said that the U.S. is prepared to make security assurances for the North if they agree to denuclearize. But to Greg's point, then you have Secretary Mattis back here in the States coming out and saying that the troops that we have in South Korea are apparently not on the table. What's going on here?
Well, there's a lot of options out there regarding security guarantees. There's confidence in security building measures, perhaps doing things like announcing exercises, have North Koreans observe South Korean U.S. exercises, the disposition of U.S. forces. I mean, there's a whole host of things out there that could be done. Now, of course, in the short term, you don't want to change the game too much in terms of our troops there to ensure that North Korea doesn't have something up its sleeves. But over time, Connell, you could certainly move forces back away from the DMZ with the same thing that the North Koreans could do, so that any sort of attack could be, you'd have more strategic warning of it. So there's a whole list of things that could be considered out there.
Yeah, they have a lot of different ways they could go. I think the way China reacts to all this might be more interesting in some ways to what we do here in the United States, or even what the North Koreans do. Lanhee, the Chinese actually did put some sanctions in place here in recent years against North Korea, but based on how this all goes, you wonder what they will do with those sanctions. Do they roll them back a little bit, become even more friendly with North Korea? What role do you think China will play after today?
Well, I'd keep an eye on China. I think that they are going to play a very important role in this entire process. I think, they have a very, very serious sort of proximate concern, which is what's actually happening on the Korean Peninsula, which is right next door to where they are. But beyond that, obviously, they're concerned about their sphere of influence in the region.
Right.
Obviously, China's goal has always been regional hegemony, and I think that's something that hasn't changed. And so, remember, there's a three-dimensional game of chess going on here, right? You've got the Chinese talking to the U.S. on trade. You've got them influencing North Korea. So I would keep a very close eye on what happens. They are going to be influential in this process, if not directly, certainly through the North Korean regime.
Yeah, and they have been leading up to it. Peter, a quick thought on that from you, and as well as where's your level of expectation going into this? Seems like everybody's trying to set the bar somewhere.
Well, they're very modest. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but I'm deeply skeptical based on our history at North Korea, North Korea's involvement or its performance on previous arms control agreements. So I'm keeping them very modest. I think they're right in saying that it's a first step in a long journey. Anything,
Lanhee, that the president has to be careful of? Some have brought up the idea of, hey, be careful kind of picture that is taken out of this, especially if there's nothing big coming out in terms of substance and how it might be seen, the type of propaganda that might be used?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be careful here in recognizing that.
I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Lanhee, real quick.
That's all right. Go ahead, Lonnie.
I say we have to be careful here because the North Korean regime, I mean, these are people that have had some serious problems in the past, serious violations of human rights. So we need to be careful not to appear to be too cozy with them.
Exactly. It doesn't seem like, we had to wrap this up now, it doesn't seem like the human rights issue is going to come up from what we've heard. But then again, as we say with all these things, once the two of them get in the room, you never know what will come up. Lanhee and Peter, good to see both of you. Thanks a lot.